Hi, I just wanted to show you a quick calibration test of my prototype unit. I've got my MV106 voltage reference standard here, and I've got my Keysight 34470A to verify that. As you can see, it's precisely 5 volts DC, and I'm in calibration mode here. But unfortunately, this averaging issue, look, I don't know how long to actually leave that counting down before I actually do the calibration for the 0 and the other one. I've already done this one, so it's pretty darn close to 0, but you see how it went all the way down to 0, and now it's counting all the way, and now it's counting back up. So I'm going to presume that this countdown here is actually doing 15 averages in this case, and you don't have to wait for it to do that. Now you can see it's actually gone back to 0 here, but once again, if you leave it, it's actually going to start to drift back up. So that's a problem. That roll, we have to really get rid of that rolling, that averaging filter. It just does not work, either in operation or in calibration. It seems we've got an issue. It's slowly creeping up. I can leave it. I'm not sure what it's going to creep up to, but let's assume that that's done, and let's plug in our 5 volt reference standard. And once again, I don't know whether or not to leave it to settle or whether or not to just actually press the calibration function on here. And the LCD segments are not the best. I believe that's got to be a software driving issue. Even though I can adjust the contrast and everything else, it's not terrific. Depends on what mode it goes in. They fade out. It really is quite annoying. Anyway, going to feed it in. Going to press mem. And once again, I assume that the average before didn't count, and now it's the average now that counts. So bingo, we're spot on 5.0000, and it does work. But we'll probably see this drift a little bit if we leave it. I have actually seen it drift before. Here we go. We're starting, and as you can see, the actual value is not drifting by anywhere near that significant digit here. We're talking about that digit there drifting, 3 zeros and that one. And you can see that the voltage we're feeding in is not drifting at all. Because this is a proper decent calibration standard. It's been verified with the Keysight meter, and you can see that it is slowly starting to drift. Once again, not by a huge margin, but it really shouldn't do that because the temperature here is not changing, the conditions aren't changing. So yeah, that is not good. So anyway, we can switch that off. Now that that range is calibrated. I really like the calibration procedure, how it works, by the way. It really is quite neat. So that's implemented very well. And you can see that there you go, 5.000. Nice. It's going to hover. It went over, so it overshot a little bit. Now then undershot. Now it's overshooting a bit more. I can see what you mean about noise potentially being an issue. So yeah, I'd like to see it with no noise filter at all, with no averaging filter at all on it. Because if you want averaging, you turn on the averaging mode in min-max av. So, you know, there should not be any averaging going on during normal operation. You can see that it's drifted by 5 least significant digits there, even though the value over here hasn't drifted at all. So yeah, it's a bit of a concern. We need to fix this one up. Anyway, yes, the calibration procedure does work, and the values do seem to stick. So I'm not going to go through and calibrate them all, but yeah. So what caused that calibration to fail on my meter? I'm not sure. It could be a firmware bug. I assume it's some sort of firmware bug issue, hopefully, because it should. I presume that the calibration values are stored in E squared prom, and they're not stored in... No, the battery in there only does the real-time clock. No, that's fine. So they must be stored in E squared prom. So yeah, they shouldn't change. It's got to be a software bug for that to happen. Anyway, you can see it's gone up to 6 least significant digits now, so it is not the most stable thing at all. Anyway, thanks. See ya.